What's up, everybody? It's Amrinder Singh, and you are listening to Learn Punjabi like a native podcast. The main purpose of this podcast is to teach you conversation in Punjabi and tell the difference between textbook type Punjabi and the real conversation in Punjabi. Now, let's kick this thing off. Today, we're gonna take a look on three language learning methods. I'm gonna talk about briefly about all these three methods. First, we take a look about the process of method. Then we're gonna talk about advantage and disadvantage of methods. So these methods are first is like a traditional method, the way we learn in the school, stuff like that. The second is the way like a native speakers learn. It could be any language, right? The way native speakers learn. This is the second method. The third method is when we combine both, little bit traditional method, little bit like a native speakers learn. So this is third method. So I'm gonna talk about all three methods. Okay. So first method is traditional method. So what is the process of this method? Basically, we learn first the letters of that language, right? Whatever the language you're learning, we learn letters first, or we start from how to greet people, yeah. So first we learn letters, then we learn some words, how to pronounce them, stuff like that, right? Then we translate the lines into that language we're learning. So we write like a line in our native language, then we try to translate it like in the language we learn, right? That's how we learn in school. Then we also learn the grammar, right? We also learn grammar rules. We have practice, right? So we have fill in the blanks. We learn prepositions, stuff like that. All the methods we learn. Mostly we are doing reading and writing in this method. So in this method, there's a no, like not no, I mean there's very little listening and speaking. The normal speaking. Yeah, we speak when we read, but it is not that natural, right? So what is the advantage of this language? Not language. So what is the advantage of this method? So I think this is a good way to like if you already like advanced level and you want to improve your language skill to the next level, right? If you want to be an expert in that language you're learning, I think this is a good, you need to learn that way. You can start at the beginning, I think. Yeah, maybe if you are that kind of person, I don't know, but I don't think this is a good idea to start with. So it's good when you are going to learn like a difficult words, right? The specific words about that language when you are already advanced level and you want to expand it. So yeah. So I think that's the advantage. If you want to improve your language you're learning to the next level, this is the good way. Disadvantage, there are a lot of disadvantages in that language. First of all, this is not the way the native people learn. It's not natural way, right? So there's not a casual conversation. So it's really hard when you are just trying to translating the random lines into your uh, yeah, when you're trying to translate your native language lines to your into that language you're learning, right? So basically your head is focusing on translating, you're not getting any kind of real life experience. Another thing, you are focusing too much on grammar rules. You are trying to being perfect, right? You're trying to fill in blanks. You're learning the rules of that language, but the actual thing you're not doing it. You are not experienced the language. So that's why you would see most of people, maybe you have a second language in school when you were in the school, right? You learn the grammar, you're translating it, but like after 6 years when you finish the school and you still can't speak, you can't have a conversation, and you spend so long time to learning that language with traditional way, right? So that's why we can't speak when we try to learn in that way. Yeah, we can be like an intermediate level stuff like that. Reading, we can write, but to have a conversation as a like a normally, naturally, it's really hard. So I think it happened with everybody, even with me. When I was in school, I studied English more than 6 or 7 years, and I was still not able to speak English, right? So this happened with everybody, I think. The next method is the way native speakers learn, right? So this is the second one. Before I start talking about this method, and if you wanna learn about pronouns, like all kind of pronouns in Punjabi, I have an ebook. So you can get this ebook on Patreon. Like you can find this link in the description, and it's just in $2. You can support me on the $2 and you can get this ebook. Yeah, it is not necessary. Like if you don't want to spend your money, this is totally fine. I will make a podcast in the future about like a pronoun you can listen. But if you want to see like in front of you, you want to read it, then you can get it. All right, so this is also great way to support the podcast. So there was also other links about like Facebook group, Clubhouse community. So there are a lot. I'm not gonna talk about every single because it's gonna take a lot of time, so make sure you check the links. Anyway, back to the topic. So the second is that way native speakers learn. Actually, it's really tough because it's hard to be in that environment than the way native speakers learn, right? But this is a really good way to learn. There are a lot of people say we should learn like babies, right? The way babies learn. But who the hell going to show that kind of patience with our right with us? So it's almost impossible, I think, because when it's baby, so their parents they have like a large amount of patience, so they're gonna like they can talk to their kids again and again, over and over, right? So they're not tired of that, right? So nobody's gonna talk like that with you, and everybody is going to correct you, or everybody is like saying the same sentence again and again, so your ear can train it. But mostly you can do it like you can listen as much as possible. Like if you're living in that speaking country, this is really good. Like you are just like talking to people. Like if you're completely beginner, probably you can't talk, but you can like seeing them, you are identifying the words, the lines, so it's going to be easier for you to learn that language. Even if you are not living in that country, you can still learn. Like there are a lot of platforms, you can immerse yourself in that language. You can have a lot of listening. The way people uh the way native speakers learn, right? It's not going to completely like them. Basically, like you are not focusing on learning any kind of grammar. Basically, you're just like trying to learn. You're picking up the words, you're picking up the lines, right? You're learning through like social media, YouTube, whatever, right? These kind of these kind of stuff, and you're talking to people like on the phone, maybe face to face. This is really good, but I think the advantage of this method is you become fluent faster, and you feeling like you are not learning anything. You're just enjoying the process. You have no pressure. You have no pressure on yourself. Like you have no pressure of grammar. You have no pressure of being a perfect. This is a really good advantage of learning this method. The disadvantage of this method is it's really hard to find like that kind of environment, right? It's really hard. Another thing, nobody's going to be a patient with you like that, like babies, right? So it's almost impossible, but you can you can do your best. If you adopt this method, this is going to be really helpful for you. Another thing, at the beginning it's really hard to adopt this method because nobody's going to talk with you as a baby. When you like become a little bit advanced, not advanced, like intermediate level, if that time you would use this method, this is going to really benefit you. because now you can understand like a some uh the language you're learning, right? You can understand some, and you can immerse yourself in that language. When you're listening something, maybe you are picking some words, and maybe you're like a you can understand maybe few sentences. So that time it would help you to improve your skills, because if you are completely beginner and you are not getting anything, this is really hard to adopt this method. But like if you know some kind of language, then it's really good, because now you're not feeling like you have to study, you are just enjoying, you're listening, you're talking. Then this is a really good method actually. So third method is like when we combine words, right? So it didn't mean you are going to you are going to learn completely traditional, but you're gonna pick up some of their uh, methods. Like for example, you are gonna understand some like their grammar structure. You don't need to completely dive into that. You don't need to completely focus on that. You don't need to be a perfect and that thing, but you need to understand a little bit like how it works. Basically, you are going to find the difference between in textbook language and between basically you are going to find the difference between textbook language and the language the people talk, right? So this is going to really help you. Now you can identify the differences, because when you if you have a book and you are learning from that, this is going to be mostly formal. And now you can understand when people talk, then what's the difference, how they change the sentences, right? And they how they pronounce a different way. So basically you're learning both of ways. So because you won't confuse when somebody is speaking, if you learn a sentence, if you learn some uh, tenses or some kind of language, right? And when you're when you're listening and you're not getting it, right? So it's really hard. But if you learn the difference, you can now understand yeah, there's a difference. And you can identify that, oh, this sentence on the book is different. The way people speak, that's the different, right? So it's going to be easier for you. So basically in this method, you are doing some kind of study, right? You're trying to learn new things. So and you're also enjoying the language. Basically when we do the traditional learning method, so basically we are mostly studying, right? So we are not practicing much in like a real thing. When we're learning like a native, is mostly we are not trying to study, we are just enjoying the language and learning it, right? So it's really hard to do that as an adult. Yeah, when you're a baby, that's different case. But when we're learning as an adult, so this is really hard. And when we are combining both, we in this case, we are also studying some kind of, and we are trying to learn, and we are also enjoying, we are immerse ourselves in that language. So it means we are doing both. So biggest advantage of this language, so biggest advantage of this method is you can also if you're completely beginner, it's also going to really good method for you, because you are going to do some kind of study, and then you're going to apply it to in your real life, right? You're going to speak that kind of sentences, you are going to enjoy these kind of stuff, right? So when you study, actually you're not going to be a fluent doing the study. It would help you to understand the language, understand the language structure. So how you're gonna be a fluent? You're gonna fluent when you are going to enjoy the language, when you are going to immerse yourself into the language, when you are doing a lot of listening and and a lot of speaking. Actually, you don't need to do a lot of speaking, but some kind of speaking every day, it is going to be help. Yeah, if you do the more speaking, this is better. This is going to be better, and you become um, fluent faster. But if you do like a little bit of speaking every day, you are going to still fluent if you keep doing every single day. But most important thing is to listening. I think you need to listen a lot, right? I think this is the method is mostly important and most effective for everybody when we like combine those way of learning. And another thing, actually my favorite is second one, when we learn like a native, because you have no worry and you have no like kind of stress on your mind. Like you are not feeling you're studying, you don't need to really learn anything, you are just immerse yourself and enjoying the language, and you are learning naturally, automatically. Well, this is really hard to do at the beginning. I think if you are as a beginner, you should like doing some kind of study, and you need to understand the language, what kind of difference, a little bit grammar. Don't try to focus too much on grammar. Try to understand it, and try to like implement those things in your real life, and try to talk as a naturally, and try to understand the way people, the way native speaker speaks. So when you become a little bit like an intermediate level or free intermediate level, then maybe you can switch to like second method, like totally the native speakers learn. So now you won't have worry about anything, you're just like enjoying the language. So this is, I think, a really good method, because you don't have to worry about it. When we are learning the first method, the traditional way, mostly we are just doing study, 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 and we're not trying to implement those things in our real life. We don't have enough practice. Like basically you are learning like a rules. Maybe you already know the all rules of the grammar rules, but you can't implement, you can't speak because you don't have enough practice. That's the problem with the first method. And another thing, when we try to translate like a lines from our native language in that language, basically like we are thinking first in our own language, our native language. When we are going to translate in the language we're learning, actually it takes like a longer time. That's why we can't speak. If you want to be fluent in that language, you need to think directly into that language. That's how you become fluent. So basically, when I told you like some sentences, then I told you this sentence in English, how it's going to be in Punjabi, we are translating it. So basically, when you are listening these kind of lessons, it won't become you fluent. So the purpose of these kind of lessons is to like make you understand about the language, so you can understand some kind of things. Like when I say sada means our and apna means our. So basically I'm translating, right? So sada and apna, two different words and very similar to each other. But when we translate in English, it is only one word, our, right? So I translate it because you can understand that. But if you learn it directly, right, like if you don't try to learn it through translation, it's going to be a better. But how would you learn that? You need real experience. If you don't have real experience, you won't understand that. So basically, when I do these kind of lessons, when I tell you difference between two words, and I also tell you meaning in the English, basically I'm trying to make you understand the structure, right? So it won't help you to become a fluent. So what help you to become a fluent is to choose those words in sentences when you are talking, or understand what the meaning of that word in context when you're listening something, because it's much easier if you already know uh, some kind of meaning of that word. For example, if somebody is using a sada or apna and you are listening it and you only know you know it means our already, right? But exactly you don't know what the difference between those two words, and you are doing you are learning these words directly for a talking to people. You would learn it slowly without any explanation, right? But it's really hard for you to understand those words at the beginning. But if you know what kind of difference is it, you can understand that. Actually, you know the explanation of that word, right? So when you learn only one translation, like our means sada, apna means sada, right? That's what you know. This is not going to help you to understand. When you know the complete a definition of these words, how they are different than each other, that time when somebody is using, you are not translating in a one word to in one word. You are understanding in the whole explanation, whole definition. You know that. So why he used that, right? So that's help you to understand, right? So it would help you when you are going to use these words in your own speaking. That's how you become fluent, right? And I don't care how many lessons you take from your teacher. I don't care how many times you listen to my podcast and how many times you study. Maybe you study 2 hours every day, maybe 3 hours. I don't care how much study you do. If you are not practicing, if you are not speaking and listening, then you won't become fluent. Yeah, there's certain level of limit. Maybe you can speak a little bit, but you won't be a fluent. To become a fluent, you need to listen and talk, repeat again and again, right? So that's how you become fluent. So basically, when you're learning new words to my podcast, maybe in another podcast, whatever, right? When you're learning slangs or words or sentences, so it won't make you fluent, right? But it would give you the tool to understand that language and build your vocabulary so you can use. When you see a word on the dictionary, there are a few words, only few meanings, right? Like sada means our, or maybe there would be other words like marna means kill or hit or beat. If you only see those words, okay, marna means beat, marna means hit, marna means kill, right? If you only know these three words, that the meaning of marna, you won't understand it completely. But if you understand the complete meaning of marna, how it is different from kill and hit, means two, basically it's two different words, right? So how would you use marna as a kill, how would you use marna as a hit, right? You need to understand that. And you also need to understand that how marna could mean something different in slang way. Like tung gap marna, I already made a podcast about it. Tung gap marna, it means you are lying. So here's here's no word as a hit, no word as kill or beat, right? It's basically like you are saying you're lying, right? So it's lying. So how the hell marna we use in this sentence, right? So it's mean you are speaking lie or you're lying. So when you understand the complete definition of that word, that's gonna help you. It's hard to find in the books. So I think that's why I try to explain some words we use in different ways. So but like I already said, you if you learn these kind of stuff, it won't make you fluent. To become a fluent, you need to use it. You need to listen as much as possible. Most important thing to become a fluent is listening and speaking. Listen, speak. Listening is actually you need to do 80% of listening and 20% of like speaking, because you need more input than output. If you get more input again and again, maybe you produce more. That's, I think that's the best way to learn, or that's the thing. At the end, I just wanna say try to do different kind of methods. What method suits you best? Try that. You don't need to follow my like my explanation or my opinion what I'm saying, right? Maybe it's work for like maybe traditional method works for you, but I don't think it's gonna work. But if you think that's going to work for you, you can do that if you want. But it's better if you try to learn and try to immerse yourself in that language. You would become fluent faster. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoy the lesson and learn something new today. I'll be back with another lesson in another day.